A revolver does not care about the weather. It does not care about mud, sand, or 40 below zero temperatures. You pull the trigger, it fires every single time. That is not marketing. That is a century of proof. But not every revolver earns that reputation. Most look the part. Very few actually deliver when your life depends on the next pull of the trigger. These 7 did. Highway shootouts, Alaskan wilderness, combat zones, extreme conditions that would choke a modern semi-automatic into silence. These revolvers kept firing through all of it. We are counting down from 7 to the one revolver with a track record so impressive it set the standard for every Magnum handgun that came after it. Number 7. The Ruger GP100. The Ruger GP100 earned its spot on this list through sheer, unapologetic, bulletproof engineering. When Sturm, Ruger and Company designed this revolver in 1985, they had one goal in mind: build a .357 Magnum that could digest a steady diet of the most punishing high-pressure loads day after day, year after year, without ever shaking itself apart. The secret to this legendary durability lies in Ruger's proprietary investment casting process and a frame design that lacks a traditional side plate. Unlike many classic revolvers that use a removable side plate to access the internal mechanism, which inherently creates a weak point in the frame's structural integrity, the GP100 uses a solid frame housing. The trigger mechanism drops out entirely from the bottom as a single modular unit. This means both sides of the frame are solid, heat-treated steel, creating a vault-like structure that simply does not warp or stretch under heavy recoil. This over-engineered strength is further enhanced by what Ruger calls their triple locking cylinder design. Most revolvers lock the cylinder at the rear and at the tip of the ejector rod. The GP100 secures the cylinder at the rear, the bottom, and directly into the frame at the crane. This distributes the massive concussive forces from full-power Magnum cartridges across multiple heavy steel-bearing surfaces, preventing the slight rotational loosening or end-shake that plagues lesser revolvers over time. Because of this bomb-proof design, the GP100 quickly became a favorite for handloaders and wilderness guides who push the .357 Magnum cartridge to its absolute ballistic limits. While lighter revolvers might crack a forcing cone or suffer timing issues with heavy 180-grain hardcast bear loads, the GP100 eats them flawlessly. Alaskan bush pilots and backcountry hikers routinely carry the GP100 in chest rigs, knowing that if they stumble between a coastal brown bear and her cubs, the revolver will fire without catastrophic failure. What makes the GP100 special isn't just its massive strength, but its brilliant simplicity. The peg-style grip frame allows shooters to easily swap out grips of wildly different sizes and shapes, adapting the massive gun to almost any hand size. Furthermore, Ruger's transfer bar safety mechanism ensures that the hammer can never strike the firing pin unless the trigger is deliberately pulled all the way to the rear, making it completely safe to carry fully loaded in rough terrain. Competitive shooters have pushed GP100 revolvers to their absolute limits in heavy metal divisions. Some competitors fire tens of thousands of rounds per year, and the GP100s just keep running. The heavy underlug barrel tames the muzzle flip of a .357 Magnum beautifully, while the incredibly robust adjustable sights are built to survive impacts that would shear the sights right off a standard target pistol. Number 6. The Colt Python. The Colt Python represents the absolute pinnacle of American revolver craftsmanship, earning its reputation through meticulous hand-fitting, stunning aesthetics, and precision manufacturing that set the standard for premium handguns worldwide. When Colt introduced the Python in 1955, they weren't trying to build a budget-friendly duty gun. They were creating a flagship masterpiece of mechanical engineering. Every Python that left the Hartford factory during its golden era was painstakingly hand-fitted by skilled craftsmen who understood that perfection couldn't be rushed. The internal parts were polished to a mirror finish with walrus hide wheels, resulting in a buttery smooth double-action trigger pull that felt like it was rolling on glass. The Python's distinctive ventilated rib and full underlug barrel isn't just for looks. This iconic design serves critical functions that enhance both accuracy and shooter comfort. The heavy underlug adds stabilizing weight to the muzzle, drastically reducing muzzle flip and allowing for rapid, accurate follow-up shots. The ventilated rib adds rigidity to the barrel and allows heat to dissipate quickly during extended firing, preventing mirage waves from distorting the shooter's sight picture. But the true secret to the Python's legendary accuracy lies in its unique lock-up geometry. Unlike most revolvers, where the cylinder has a microscopic amount of rotational play even when the trigger is pulled, the Python's action is designed to force the cylinder bolt perfectly tight against the chamber just as the hammer falls. This creates what enthusiasts call a bank vault lockup. The barrel and the chamber align with absolute, unyielding precision, allowing the bullet to enter the forcing cone perfectly centered. This is why vintage Pythons are capable of producing ragged hole groupings at 25 yards. Because of this high-end accuracy and intimidation factor, the Python found its way into the holsters of elite law enforcement agencies who could afford the premium price tag. Departments like the Colorado State Patrol and the Georgia State Patrol famously issued Pythons to their troopers. For a highway patrolman working alone on a dark, isolated stretch of road, having the accuracy of a target pistol combined with the stopping power of a .357 Magnum provided unparalleled confidence. The Python's finish is equally legendary in the firearms world. The deep, lustrous Colt Royal Blue was the result of a labor-intensive polishing process and complex chemical baths. This finish wasn't just stunningly beautiful. The obsessive polishing removed microscopic surface imperfections, making the steel highly resistant to rust and corrosion. While modern manufacturing has allowed Colt to reintroduce the Python using CNC machining and simplified internals, the legacy of the original 1955 to 1990s models remains untouched. They are the Rolex watches of the revolver world, tools of undeniable precision, built by master gunsmiths and trusted by professionals who demanded the absolute best. Number 5. The Smith Wesson Model 686. The Smith Wesson Model 686 revolutionized law enforcement sidearms by solving one of the most pressing mechanical issues of the 20th century, combining the strength needed for a new era of Magnum cartridges with the precision manufacturing Smith & Wesson had perfected over 100 years. To understand the genius of the 686, you have to look at the era before 1980. Police departments were widely issuing lightweight, high-velocity 125-grain .357 Magnum ammunition. While devastatingly effective on the street, this specific load was burning incredibly hot and fast. When fired continuously through medium-framed revolvers, the intense pressure and flame cutting were causing the forcing cones, the critical rear portion of the barrel, to crack. Smith & Wesson realized they needed a gun stronger than their medium K-frame, but not as massive and heavy as their large N-frame. In 1980, they introduced the L-frame, and the stainless steel Model 686 was born. The L-frame beefed up the forcing cone, the top strap, and the cylinder dimensions, creating a revolver perfectly engineered to digest an endless diet of full-power Magnums without ever failing, while maintaining a grip size that average-sized officers could comfortably handle. The key to the 686's exceptional reliability lies in this perfect dimensional balance. The solid stainless steel cylinder is machined to incredibly tight tolerances, capable of withstanding pressures that would warp smaller guns. The addition of a full-length barrel underlug added forward weight, which absorbed the sharp, snappy recoil of the .357 Magnum, allowing officers to fire faster and more accurately under stress. Law enforcement and federal agencies quickly recognized the brilliance of the 686. One of the most famous adoptions was by the United States Customs Service, who requested a specialized version known as the CS1, featuring a matte stainless finish to reduce glare and a specialized front sight. The CS1 was carried by customs agents intercepting heavily armed drug smugglers operating along the borders and coastlines. These revolvers were exposed to salt spray, extreme humidity, and the physical abuse of boat-to-boat boardings, and the stainless steel 6.86 performed flawlessly. The 6.86's trigger mechanism represents the refined evolution of Smith & Wesson engineering. The double-action pull is highly predictable, and the single-action brake is legendary for its crispness. In the practical shooting competitions of the 1980s and 90s, the 6.86 dominated. It was the weapon of choice for shooters who needed to run high-pressure rounds against the clock while hitting small steel plates at distance. Later, Smith & Wesson introduced the 6.86 Plus, an engineering marvel that utilized advanced metallurgy to fit 7 chambers into the cylinder instead of the traditional 6. This gave defensive shooters a critical extra round without increasing the outer dimensions of the cylinder, bringing the classic revolver closer to the capacity of early semi-automatic duty pistols. Resistant to sweat, rain, and holster wear, the stainless steel Model 6.86 remains one of the most practical, rugged, and perfectly balanced .357 Magnums ever devised. Number 4. The Ruger Redhawk. The Ruger Redhawk represents the ultimate expression of American heavy-duty engineering applied to revolver design. Built from the ground up to handle the most powerful handgun cartridges ever developed, the Redhawk maintains the absolute mechanical certainty that Ruger firearms are famous for. When Ruger introduced the Redhawk in 1979, they weren't content to simply build a slightly larger .44 Magnum. They wanted to create a handgun that could safely fire hand-loaded ammunition so powerful it approached the energy levels of rifle cartridges. The result was a revolver engineered to withstand concussive forces that would literally stretch or detonate conventional handguns. The Redhawk's frame is investment cast from a single, massive piece of proprietary steel alloy. This creates a structure with an incredibly thick top strap and no weak joints. But the true engineering marvel is the cylinder design. Ruger deliberately offset the cylinder locking notches instead of cutting them directly over the thinnest part of the chamber walls, as is standard on most revolvers. Ruger cut the notches between the chambers. This leaves the chamber walls at their maximum possible thickness, allowing the Redhawk to handle wildly overpressured Ruger-only loads that reloading manuals specifically warn against using in any other brand of firearm. Because of this unmatched strength, the Redhawk instantly became the gold standard for dangerous game defense in the Pacific Northwest and Alaska. When you are hiking through dense alder thickets in grizzly country, you aren't carrying standard target ammunition. You are carrying 300 grain or heavier hard-cast lead bullets designed to penetrate the thick skull and dense muscle of a charging apex predator. The Redhawk's ability to fire these massive rounds at maximum velocity without binding the cylinder or cracking the frame makes it a literal lifesaver. Alaskan bush pilots, logging crews, and backcountry guides adopted the Redhawk because it offered rifle-like stopping power in a package that could be worn comfortably in a chest holster while working. When a coastal brown bear charges, there is no time to unshoulder a rifle. You have seconds to draw and fire. The Redhawk's mechanical simplicity means there is no safety to disengage, no slide to rack, and no magazine to seat. Number 3. The Colt Detective Special. The Colt Detective Special earned its legendary reputation by proving that a compact, easily concealable revolver could deliver full-size reliability and superior capacity in the hands of the law enforcement officers who needed it most. When Colt introduced the Detective Special in 1927, they revolutionized the concept of the belly gun. Prior to this, undercover officers and plainclothes detectives were forced to carry either underpowered pocket pistols or awkwardly sawed-down full-size revolvers. The Detective Special changed everything. Built on Colt's D-frame, it offered a 2-inch barrel and a shortened grip, making it ideal for deep concealment. But what made the Detective Special vastly superior to its competitors was its capacity. While Smith & Wesson's legendary J-frame snub-nose revolvers, like the Chief's Special, only held 5 rounds. The slightly larger cylinder of the Colt D-frame held a full 6 rounds of .38 Special. In a close-quarters gunfight, having a 20% increase in ammunition capacity before needing to reload was a massive tactical advantage. The Detective Special became the absolute standard for mid-20th century police detective work. It was the gun carried by the fedora-wearing, hard-boiled detectives of the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. Investigators needed firearms that could disappear under a tailored suit jacket, yet be drawn instantly when a suspect decided to shoot their way out of an arrest. The roots of the Detective Special actually trace back to John Henry Fitzgerald, a legendary Colt employee who used to take full-size revolvers, chop the barrels down, shorten the ejector rods, and completely remove the front half of the trigger guard for faster access, creating the famous Fitz Special. Colt took the core practicality of Fitzgerald's dangerous custom jobs and refined it into the factory-produced Detective Special, keeping the trigger guard intact but retaining the fast-handling, snag-free nature of the design. The internal lockwork of the Detective Special utilized a leaf spring design, heavily related to the larger Colt duty revolvers. This gave it a uniquely smooth, stacking double-action trigger pull. Because the gun was so well balanced, skilled shooters found they could achieve surprising accuracy at ranges far beyond typical phone booth combat distances. For decades, off-duty police officers, private investigators, and undercover vice squads trusted their lives to this snub-nosed six-shooter. It survived the transition from the Prohibition era through the turbulent 1970s, constantly updated with heavier barrels and shrouded ejector rods, but always maintaining its core identity. It proved that a gun didn't need a 6-inch barrel to be a serious fighting tool. It just needed to go bang every single time the trigger was pulled. Number 2. The Smith & Wesson Model 19. The Smith & Wesson Model 19 Combat Magnum represents the perfect, harmonious balance between devastating ballistic power and elegant all-day carry comfort. It is widely considered the quintessential American police revolver, born from the mind of one of the greatest gunfighters of the 20th century. The story of the Model 19 begins with Bill Jordan, a legendary United States Border Patrol inspector, Marine Corps veteran, and exhibition shooter. Jordan had spent years in the harsh, dangerous environment of the southern border, and he knew exactly what a lawman needed. The large-frame .357 Magnums of the era were incredibly heavy, dragging down an officer's gun belt during a long shift. Conversely, the lighter .38 Special revolvers were comfortable to carry, but lacked the terminal ballistics needed to punch through vehicle doors or stop determined threats. Jordan went to Smith & Wesson with a vision for the peace officer's dream. He asked them to take their medium K-frame, which was traditionally only chambered in .38 Special, and upgrade the metallurgy to handle the high pressures of the .357 Magnum. He requested a heavy profile barrel to absorb recoil, a shrouded ejector rod to protect it from being bent during a struggle, and adjustable sights for precision accuracy. In 1955, Smith & Wesson delivered exactly that. Originally called the Combat Magnum and later designated the Model 19, it was an absolute masterpiece. It gave law enforcement officers the devastating penetration and stopping power of the Magnum cartridge, packaged in a beautifully balanced revolver that pointed as naturally as an extension of the officer's arm. Number 1. The Smith & Wesson Model 27. The Smith & Wesson Model 27 stands completely alone at the summit of revolver history. It is the original Magnum. It is the firearm that shattered the boundaries of handgun ballistics, defined the concept of the premium revolver, and established a legacy of trust that has remained unbroken for nearly 90 years. To understand the Model 27, you have to go back to the early 1930s. The Prohibition era had given rise to heavily armed, motorized bandits wearing rudimentary bulletproof vests and driving thick-steeled V8 automobiles. Law enforcement found that their standard .38 Special revolvers were simply bouncing off car doors and heavy layers of wool and armor. Enter firearms pioneer Elmer Keith, ballistics expert Phil Sharp, and Colonel Douglas B. Wesson. Together, they relentlessly experimented with heavy-framed .38/44 revolvers, packing vastly more powder behind the bullet to achieve unprecedented velocities. In 1935, they unveiled the result, the .357 S&W Magnum cartridge and the massive end-frame revolver built to fire it. Originally simply called the registered Magnum, this was not a mass-produced tool. It was a custom-order luxury item and the most powerful handgun on the planet. Each gun was practically hand-built to the buyer's exact specifications. Barrel length, sights, and grips were completely customizable.